Welcome aboard the PowerUp with Manal Podcast, your go-to source for inspiring entrepreneurship, leadership, and mental fitness development. Get ready to push your limits mentally and come away feeling like a turbocharged version of yourself. Let's power up our lives. Allow me to introduce you to Dylan Healy, one of the co-founders of Animation Explainers. This man is not just an entrepreneur, but an embodiment of the just do it mentality. I recently had the pleasure of sitting down with him for an interview, and let me tell you, it was a blast. Armed with a pint and a contagious sense of humor, Dylan shares his amazing journey into entrepreneurship and the fusion of fun and determination that brought him to where he is today. From the very start of the interview, Dylan's wit and wisdom shines through. He emphasizes that there's never a perfect time to start your own business, and you should take the leap and get started. His story was a testament of his philosophy as he plunged into the world of entrepreneurship. Dylan's journey was nothing short of inspiring, and he and his co-founder used this creativity and passion to establish Animation Explainers, a company that has now created over 850 animated videos for over 300 clients worldwide. He shared his pride in being part of the team that creates something new and exciting every day, and the satisfaction of seeing clients happy with their work. Of course, a fun factor couldn't be missed in this interview. Dylan emphasizes the importance of enjoying the process of building a business and not taking things too seriously. After all, laughter and beer go hand in hand, including talking about challenges and when things may not feel like they're going the way they should be, how you can persevere above it. The interview is filled with humor and joyful shenanigans, and that highlights the balance of hard work and play. In conclusion, Dylan's story is a testament of the power of determination, creativity, and fun in this world of entrepreneurship. For those looking to start a business, Dylan's words of wisdom provide a blueprint for success. Just take the leap, learn as you go, enjoy the process, and don't forget to celebrate with a beer or two. Dylan Healy, thank you so much for being on the Power Up with Manal podcast. We cross paths through the internet. We're cheersing. Let's cheers. Let's cheers. Cheers.
We got the Guinness. We got the seltzer action going on.
We got the Guinness. We got the background. It's yes. That's what it's all about. It's about real
Let's
talk.
Go.
It's about conversations. It's about new friendships. And I'm really excited for you to be here and share your journey as a person, as an individual, and your co-founder of Animation Explainer and what that means and how you're sort of moving forward in this digital world. So if we could take a moment, tell us a little bit about who Dylan is.
Thanks, Manal. No, appreciate the introduction, and hello to everyone watching. I'm based in the Isle of Man. This is beautiful Douglas Promenade behind us in the Isle of Man. We're having a bit of a heat wave in September at the moment, which is great. So, but yeah, this is where I started the business. Myself and my partner, Aaron, 5 years ago, we set out with Animation Explainers. And it started off as a hobby, really, Manal. You know, when people talk about the binary, 1 or 0 of kind of taking the leap into business, that didn't really happen for us because I think we were so young that we kind of were able to naturally just kind of navigate or guide ourselves into that space, which was quite nice because I imagine a lot of founders and owners watching, they might be working in a job and they want to kind of transition into that sort of world. But, sometimes you've got to switch the light off to switch another light on in order to do that. But for me and Aaron, there's a lot of luck and serendipity in the move, I suppose. We started making videos in 2018 in the blockchain and crypto space because those guys were very technical and they had no kind of marketing background. Right. So we came in with a very cheap offer, I suppose. I think we charged, it was very, very cheap at the time. It was $2,000 or $3,000 USD for a video. So we came in and we did the marketing for them. We did their, all the video content, websites, and helped them with their creative and branding. And then from that point, then it was a snowball effect. We started to get clients in. We learned how to send invoices out, and we never looked back, really. So it's a great story.
Wow, that is a great story. Also, can I say that you guys found such a great niche. Because in the, blockchain crypto sort of era that was launching, you guys found a niche, you entered into a gap, right? And you were giving them, that's an industry, and I come from a finance background. Anything dealing with technology, blockchain, finance, crypto, sort of the future of digital money. Education is what creates trust. Education is what creates sort of, I would say, buy-in and understanding and moving forward, right? So you almost provided maybe something unconsciously further than just marketing. You provided a platform where they could provide that education and really, multiply. You were like their force multiplier.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, I think these videos are a very powerful educational tool for sure. And you put a nice voiceover, you get nice creative, a good storyboard, and a good story behind it, then it can engage people. And me and you both know, Manal, how bad millennials are for kind of staying engaged and reading and actually digesting information. So I think the video content that we provide, the different styles, are a really good hook, basically. So, if you have a sales funnel and you want to get somebody to the buying position, we're a really good top of funnel sort of element to educate and to get that brand awareness going and get them into your pipeline. Right. And these videos are really powerful for that, I think,
So before you sat there and you started thinking about starting this business, what did you do?
So myself and my partner Aaron, we both working in tech.
Okay.
So we both were working in Dublin and Ireland at the time, and I had a stint at Accenture, Facebook project there, and I also worked in a company called Marketo, which is now owned by Adobe. So we spent 2 years working in tech, getting things going, but in the evenings we'd spend our time in hotel lobbies and coffee shops and in bars, and we were just kind of cooking up this idea that we had. And I think it was kind of Aaron's idea to start with, but I kind of rolled with it. Aaron's very good at the back end. He's very good at the operations. He's very good with the technical stuff, whereas I'm very good at the selling. I'm very good at the branding and the marketing. So we're a really good kind of yin yang mix together. So, and I think like we couldn't have got this far without having the support of each other as well, which is really, really important. But yeah, like we're good friends, I think, first before founders. So that also helps. And we met at this internship. So there's 4 interns.
Oh, okay.
And Aaron was sat opposite me as an intern. And he was kind of a shy, retiring sort of character. And
you were the opposite?
I think... I mean, obviously, but he struggled kind of to present, to communicate, and all that stuff. So obviously, he had this great idea, and he said, "Okay, well, I can't get it out unless I have a partner in crime." So that's where I came in, and we worked together since that point. A few little fights along the way, but nothing major. We've kind of kept it kosher. 5 years in business, and every year we go from strength to strength, and I think the relationship gets stronger, and the trust that we have for each other gets better. Right. So it's like any good relationship in life, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, and that, I think what you said is really important, that having that trust and having the vision that you both want to go towards, what you're building your company to, is very important. How do you deal, you started off niche, you've grown kind of fast, right? So how do you, as, a founder, how do you keep up with the pace? How do you know how to grow your business? Like, are you guys sitting there creating strategic plans? Are you sort of leveraging, resources? How are you, growing as, the years progress?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean,
and it's okay to talk about times that didn't work,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the first 2 years for sure, we were just scrambling for sales, and we were working month on month. And then we got to maybe 2020 around the pandemic time. And that's when we started to focus quarterly, plans quarterly. And now I think we're kind of like looking half year to a year. So because the business has been going for so long, it's like your horizon and the horizon increases, so you can actually plan ahead for longer. Right. But when you're trying to bootstrap a startup initially, it's you're scrambling for deal to deal, month to month, and I don't like to use the word hustle, but it's you're scrambling around until you kind of have the cash in the bank and you have the brand trust and you have the portfolio and you have the testimonials around you, because I think those are all things that you can't really buy, you can't really pay for them. So at this level we're at now, is we know we have the brand, we know we have a good client base, we know we've got good testimonials, and we've got a great team around us as well. So it's a lot easier. But I just remember in the early days, like working 12, 15 hour days in coffee shops, on calls with all sorts of people around the world, just trying to make it work really. And you get a bit of luck along the way as well, Manal. You get some deals that come in and they change the trajectory of your quarter, but I always think that you make your own luck, so as long as you have the calls in your calendar, you get that opportunity to roll the dice, because you don't know who's on the other side of the call. But yeah, that's really how we kind of grew the business to this level. There's no science behind it. It's more about like perseverance and trust and not taking no. You're not taking a no as the final answer.
Well, and I also think it's, and I teach my kids this, that rejection is probably one of the best skills you will learn in life, like literally.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming as you've gone through this, having a strong sort of head on your shoulders, not taking things personal, persevering and pushing through, those kind of things probably, and it might not have always been that way. You might have felt it personal, and there were days that it probably sucked to suck, right? And you were like, how do we move forward? But how do early startup founders, how do they sort of push through that phase? Because I feel like a lot of them, unless you've sort of hit a big client right away and you've kind of gone that path, which is not the common, right? That happens less than actually persevering and churning and building a pipeline, right?
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, I'm a 90s kid. I was born in 1993. So the way that I was brought up and educated, things were quite good in the world. There wasn't really much going wrong. Yeah. And also the way that we educated kids back then, it was like, everybody kind of gets a gold medal, everybody wins. And unfortunately the world doesn't really work like that. And I think rejection and failure and letting that sit is really, really important. And I don't think in my generation, so, millennials in 1993, we didn't get much of that growing up. We weren't taught that. But I think kids are now getting taught that. I went past a school recently that's near me, and on the wall they have their kind of motto, and one of the parts of the slogan was talking about risk, taking a risk. And I thought that was really interesting, because when I was a kid, that wasn't a part of the narrative, taking a risk. The people that did the best in my year group, were the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants. Right. They're the head of the society, and that's your goal. Right. But as we both know, I mean, there's many professions where you can make a good living, blue collar or white collar. And I think that the way we educate kids has changed a lot now, hopefully. But I mean, look, founders are very rare, and I think you've got to go through that failure barrier, and you've got to absolutely crash and burn at points in your life in order to learn and make yourself a better founder. And also to be a success in business is absolutely essential. It's not something you should be scared of. But, it's kind of inevitable, I suppose.
I 100% agree, but I think it's not just with millennials. If I think about, I'm going to talk about my generation a little bit, and I'm like a decade, plus ahead of you. And what was interesting is we lived in an era where the information that we knew only existed within the family circle that we were in or the inner circle. There was no internet, right? Wasn't developed until I think 1997 from Netscape. I grew up in a country where I even grew up in a compound. Satellite was restricted, and the books that came into my school were probably restricted as well on what we were to learn. So I and many people like me, we had to sort of break this need to be accepted in societal norms. It was so embedded in us, whether it be through religion, through cultures, through, school and society, that we had to be a certain way. As a, Middle Eastern female, grew up a certain way, right? Like I was a nurturer, I was safe. Things were always, safety was important. And it's very hard for me to, switch that. You said switch it off and then switch it on. It's almost like I have to do both, because what will happen if I switch it off? Like this always kind of, and I'm so very self-aware. Like I'm watching myself do things. Like it's like this halo coming in. Like it's a secondary Manal, and it's like, what the heck are you doing? Why are you overthinking this? Why are you trying to be safe?
It's hard to unprogram things that you will learn, and I think for like a long time that kind of self-acceptance was a hard thing for me. Was actually like, I was always looking for other people, be it my, my father or my family or my friends, getting that, like pat on the back or getting kind of accepted. But actually, it's within you, and how you feel about how your business journey is going.
But we don't think that way. It's so hard.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird one. I feel like that sometimes too. Yeah, I feel like that sometimes too. But at the end of the day, it's your journey, isn't it? It's not their journey. And I think like as long as you're true to what you want to do, why should you need other people's acceptance for that? But it's very hard. Most people are not like that. Most people are the opposite to that. 99% of people will be the opposite to us. But, you kind of have to step out of the pack if you want to take control of your own life and you want to, make a move, because the alternative is, it's difficult for people to deal with on a daily basis. And I don't regret the decision now, but there was definitely days in the early days where it's tough. You're not making the money. You're not getting that pat on the back. And, you're kind of thinking, do I need to go and get a real job? So it's tough.
Right. And then things start trickling in, like questioning your why, disappointment, all the things that sort of hinder us from, I would say, breaking free. That's when I got my tattoos. When I
like how
and they're birds, like it's
a good symbol.
Yeah, I had to symbolic. I had to purposely be very purposeful about what I wanted out of my journey and how I break free. And I still struggle. Like I think it's an okay struggle. I think, and if you know what you want, you have to start putting the actions in place to get there. Just like in a business, if you have set certain targets and goals, you're going to put together a strategy to get there, right? How big is your pipeline? How do you churn? Where are you going to, target? What channels you're going to distribute in? Like we create all this, and it's easy because it's like business, and you're like, I'm not going to apply it to my personal life. When we realize when we apply it to our personal life, we can grow in all the other areas that some of us really desire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's like a business life is a microcosm for your whole rest of your life, and it should only really be a small part of who you are, And I think for some founders, it gets on top of your self, but as you get older, you realize there's more to life. There is more to life than work.
Right.
And, this getting a fine balance, you don't want to burn out, I mean, we've probably both been there before. I mean, that's a negative side effect of trying to bootstrap a business, but, you do get over it. And then you make changes in your lifestyle to make sure that doesn't happen again, basically. You have to optimize the way you live.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree. So tell us a little bit about your business. What channels are you in? How are you reaching clients? How can potential clients reach you? Like, what value are you giving out there?
Sure. So animation explainers offer creative animated content. We have a 4 to 6 week timeline to create any sort of project between 1 minute to 5 minutes. We can do it in 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And we have a process called the RISE process, which is our creative, proprietary, in-house patented process that we've created over 5 years. So that stems from, a requirements gathering, going into the scripting, the creative, the storyboarding, the animation, the illustration, the revisions for our software. And, we've wrapped the whole thing up, but we've kind of fine-tuned it so much now to the level where we've got clients like Hitachi, we've got the PGA Tour is now on our books, DHL are there. And so, we started working with startups, scale-ups, and in the 5 years that we've been doing this, now we seem to be hitting some blue chip companies, which is amazing to see how far we've gone. But in terms of the industries we work in, IT and software is obviously number one. I'd say medical device, medical practice. The medical industry love these videos because it, obviously creates simplicity in what they do. Financial services, insurance is a massive industry for us. We have a big client called Kemper Auto Insurance. And, they've bought a bunch of minutes from us over the past 2 years, and we're starting to delve into other departments there, which is great. So anywhere where there's complexity in a business, I think these videos do a really great way of portraying simplicity and educating your audience.
Wow. Wait, can we cheers? Can we cheers to all that growth? We're cheersing again. There we go. Boom.
There's no calories in that seltzer, though.
Yeah.
There's like the minimal. Yeah. This is like 350, so you're beating me there.
I guess, but it's also 12:30 where I am and past 6 o'clock where you are. That's gonna change. That's gonna change in a couple hours.
You need to let loose on the weekend, right?
Balance. There's a little bit of balance. Well, how do you let loose? I mean, you got a lot going on. What is your outlet?
So I do a lot of running myself. So I do 5K runs. I try and do it every other day. I'm big into playing squash. I go skiing in the wintertime.
Oh, wow.
So those are kind of things that I do to switch off. Reading, just try and get out of your head, I suppose. Right. But it's very hard, I suppose, at the end of the day when you're buzzing from working to actually settle down. Living on the Isle of Man is great because
that looks great.
You've got nature all around you. I've got the beach right here. I can go sea swimming. I can go for a nice walk with the dog. So it's not hard to switch off. But that's also something you have to learn as a founder as well. And I've only started getting good at that in the past year, I think, really. But before that, I mean, you're working constantly and you constantly get emails on this thing, so sometimes you got to just turn it off.
Mine has literally been flashing since we've been talking.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. You need to just have time to yourself, and self-reflection and try and get out into nature is really important. So, and that's probably the place where you get the best creative ideas as well, is when you're totally switched off, you're off the grid. So it's something I'm consciously trying to work on. It's very hard though. It's very hard because a lot of our clients are in the States. So I'll be working up until 10 p.m. BST at the moment, British summertime. Because I mean, like 85% of our clients are out that way. So it's like, it's just the way it is, but it's fine. I don't mind. You guys have the budgets in the States, whereas the Europeans are a little bit more, what's the word? They're a bit more tight with their budgets in terms of marketing, right? So, I don't know. Hopefully it will change in a few years.
Yeah. I mean, I think, if what's interesting is, and I teach this, so this is what I teach people that have sort of, I would say, short-term restrictive budgets. I'm like, have you calculated the true ROI and the multiplier of where you would be if you took on X, Y, and Z initially? And usually,
that's a good one.
If it's at least 2X what you expected in your normal forecast, it's worth it.
I'm writing that down. That's a good one.
write it down.
I
There you
actually am.
go. I'll be your consultant there, on how to, but it is true.
Yeah, no, it's always tough when
for
when
for
clients.
anybody out there, it's true, right? We generally look at a number right away and we react to it. But where I think growth mindsets come, especially in business and as founders and as owning companies or trying to drive growth within companies that you're managing, it is really important to look at a number and say, what will this do to the regular course of trajectory and forecast that I have today? If it's going to increase it, right, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so we miss that. That's why we don't grow as much as we should.
Exactly. It's not the cost, it's the investment.
Right.
And what that investment is going to do for your business. Right. That's the way we try and pose it, is try and move it away from a monetary, what is the cost question, which always happens on sales calls. Right. And, big up the features and benefits of what we do. And then, you hit them with the investment rather than the cost.
Right. Now you've given value.
But yeah,
there's value.
Exactly. Yes. You've given value that way. Budgets are always an issue and it's always a difficult conversation. Another way to get around it, I find, is to say something like, I know you have cash flow issues, rather than saying, oh, you don't have the budget. Say something like, oh, you have a few cash flow issues, because it just sounds more sophisticated.
Well, and you're solving for the cash flow issue, right? Your
Exactly.
product solves for the cash flow issue because it's driving more, penetration in the market, which helps them gain, cash flow back in.
Exactly. So, yeah, but, those are kind of all areas of the sales process. We could talk about it for hours, Manal, probably, sales techniques and the way to go about it. But it's really fascinating. The whole psychology behind sales and selling is like, I think that is the best skill you can learn in your 20s. Yes. Once you learn that basic selling skill, I think it can take you into a lot of different interesting areas in your career.
I agree. And I think it's like, people think of selling like I'm a salesperson and I'm selling, but it's really, you're internally selling if you're working at a company, right? You are selling yourself at all times, right? Yeah. And so you really have to learn it. And I learned two key things. One, optics matter. The first thing that they're seeing or they're reacting to matters. It's period. And so,
yeah, for sure.
and the words that you use matter. Because if you are using trigger words that are going to distract them from the value that you're providing, you've already derailed the whole conversation in the first 10 seconds. Yeah. Right? Those are like two key things I learned, early on. I was such a dork. I thought, you had to be the smartest person in the room. And if you had the most information and spewed all the knowledge that you had, that, that's how you win.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned.
That's true.
And I'm sure a lot of technology individuals face this because now I coach them on how to speak to sales teams and marketing and,
Yeah, what we teach our sales agents is to navigating the sales calls or discovery calls generally is like, the client or the prospect should be speaking around 70% of the time. Whereas in the early days, well, especially for me, I'd be talking like 80% of the time, right? Where the client's only getting 20% of the, you know what I mean? But you have to do the discovery. You have to understand their pain points and where they're coming from. So the way you do that is you ask them questions, qualifying questions, to see if they're eligible for what you're offering, not the other way around.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to qualify in clients into your pipeline rather than vice versa. It's not like, oh, come and do business with us. We have like 5 or 6 questions we ask our clients coming into the pipe because we know there's a ton of clients that aren't a good fit for us. We don't want to work with them. So it's actually trying to change your mentality and just trying to sit back a little bit and listen to what people have to say. And yeah, it took me a long time to get that right. Obviously, this is a podcast, so it's a different medium, right? But
no, you're right.
But you know what I'm trying to say.
No, you're right. I think, it takes, obviously you learn, it takes practice, but I think what's important, and I think you said it, and maybe we're losing this a little bit, but what you're doing indirectly is also building a relationship. We, I think in society have almost undervalued the importance of relationship building, right? Because
For sure.
when you, and we are human, we are still connected through touch, through feeling, through understanding, through relationships. And if I can build a relationship with a client up front, I have now created a bond, trust, understanding, less, going back and forth because I'm not really understanding what value it is to the client, right? And you'll be more successful in the long run. And I think these are key elements that, people sort of miss up front. And maybe we're missing a little bit in our digital world too, right? We work more
For sure.
remote.
It's a lot of
Yeah,
transactional, everything's transactional. Everything is done by the click of a button. Even a transaction of money now is very kind of digitalized. It's like 2 clicks on an
right.
iPhone. Whereas I think what we try and do at Animation Explainers is we try and, nurture that kind of consultancy, which is really important. And we have some amazing clients that stuck with us for 5 years, and if you give them a good experience for one video, they'll come back for 5 more, they'll come back for
Right.
10 more. And it was, as you get older, you realize that. But when I was younger, it was like transactional. Oh, let's try and get the deal. Let's try, let's 2 or 3K here.
Yeah.
You're running around on a hamster wheel every week. But actually, as you get older, you realize if you have like 3 or 4 key clients and you go all in, you make them happy, you nurture them, you send them gifts, you email them out of the blue, pick up the phone, have a conversation with them. I think that is the way to run a small agency rather than running around like a headless chicken like I was. And you're trying to get different deals, fine. But, you've got to treat your clients with respect. And I think you'll get respect in return.
Yes, that is true. 100%. So in all this, like, do you have mentors or individuals in your life that you lean on as, because you not only are you growing your company, which is probably so fulfilling to say for yourself, but you as a person throughout this conversation, you're talking about how you are evolving as a person, as an individual, right?
Well, yes. So I suppose, we've had like probably 5 or 6 different mentors in our time. And they've all helped us through different stages of the journey. The main ones that stick out for me, Malachy Spain was one of the first guys I met. And he was an older gentleman who lives in Dublin. He was very spiritual, but he had an amazing career. And he helped me in the really early days of growing the business. I've not seen him in a few years since COVID. I need to catch up with him, but he was instrumental. Dave McDonald is another guy who's based in the Isle of Man. And Dave helped us with a lot of the branding, building the business to start off with. He's been in, online businesses for a long, long time. So Dave's a great guy. John Qualls, who's based in Indianapolis. He helped us the past year or two to kind of grow the business. And also he helped us with the culture of our business as well, which is really interesting. So I feel like, and also my dad is an amazing mentor to me. He's a director on the board in our company as well.
He knows you the best.
But he runs his own.
He knows you the best.
Exactly.
When you're talking, he knows what's in your head. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And, he's been there since the start, and he's been a constant source of support and guidance for us, myself and Aaron. And also there's been other people as well that help you along the way. Your clients tell you things as well, which is really, really interesting. But I think, those 4 guys, I mean, they helped us, a lot. And it's like different seasons, isn't it? The business sometimes needs different advice, when you're first starting off, when you're established, when you're going into financial issues. I think as long as you're kind of open enough to that feedback, then, the right people will kind of help you out with it as well. So, I mean, it's not just me and Aaron, there's a massive ecosystem of people around us, and our team as well, Manal, is incredible. The team of people, and some people that are still working with us now, but also people that, work with us for a year or two in their 20s, and they've moved on to like amazing opportunities elsewhere. So they all kind of leave their mark on the business in different ways, which is quite inspiring to think about, that the entity is not just one person, but it's, a multitude of different kind of people's expertise that are kind of firing this thing up, up into space.
Well, and like culture, it's interesting because a lot of startups, that is one of the areas that's a struggle, and not purposefully, but a lot of new businesses and startups are sort of in the trenches, moving hard with all the other things that are needed to be done. So it's almost like it's an interesting dynamic or human nature where we put culture, people, relationships a little bit on the side, right? Because you just don't have the capacity to do so. How did you guys, sort of build the culture? And what is your, sort of your value ticket internally with your team?
So the headline values are client commitment, resilience, engagement, abundance mentality, thinking outside the box, and going the extra mile. So a few of those are a bit vague, but I think as a whole, the people who embody Animation Explainers all have some of those attributes, which really helps us on a daily basis to grow the business.
What's funny is I grew up in a very corporate structured world, and there was good and the bad, right? I don't think there's one way to sway. But I think what's interesting is when I left that world 5 years ago and I started sort of exploring things, I was so impressed with how a lot of companies that weren't in such a, and you worked at, a consulting firm, so you know how it is. Like, it was so prescribed, right? Probably even to the level of the color scheme that you're allowed to use on a presentation, right? So prescriptive. That the allowance of, using your creativity or really feeling autonomous in the work you do sort of goes away after many years. And I had to personally go find that, right? And I'm a very vocal person. So I did get, probably in trouble more than I should have, or maybe I should have gotten in trouble more for speaking my opinions and piece out there. But I do feel that, what you just said and what I learned from many startups when I was helping them or consulting with them was that how you just kind of go, like, things aren't as prescribed, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be prescribed. That's okay. If things don't always follow a course, that's okay.
Yeah. That's a big part of it, isn't it? It's like, just ship the product, just ship the service and work on the details around the precipice of that, right. Make a decision, make a move. Because, 95% of people will sit back and they'll try and draw a business plan up. They'll try and, they'll look at the finances, they'll talk about it, they'll talk to their friends, they'll talk to their family, but actually in the act of just doing something,
just do it.
I'm moving
you're
forward.
Describing and even me. I used to be one of those people.
Yeah, but it's hard. But I know it's hard though. Like, when you've worked in a corporate America, you've worked for big companies in the States. I know it's damn hard to get out of that mindset because that is the way a lot of our economy works.
Which is needed. That's what creates efficiencies in financial markets. Great, but if your desire is to push forward and really take the leap, then that's not the recipe, or there's some sort of balance in recipe, right? You take the leap and then build some sort of infrastructure to have balance. But I 100%, I agree with you.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one for sure. I think a lot of big companies get bogged down in the small stuff, and if they wanted to be more creative and dynamic, you just got to move fast. You got to be dynamic. But it's hard when you're a part of a big tanker, like, we're a small schooner, we're a small yacht. We can do stuff because there's not many people involved. Right. Whereas if you're a massive big tanker, it's very hard to make decisions and get the sign off and move things around. So, I do understand that other side of the coin. So,
yeah, no, you're right. You know what, Dylan, this has been such an amazing conversation. And this is really, I love how easy we flowed in our conversation, because this is like the first time we really sat down and talked that wasn't like work or business or,
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. No, honestly, it was great to speak to you and just do something different, do something out of the box. I don't tend to do these podcasts often. Like, I just think speaking it,
Yes.
speaking your journey,
Yes.
speaking where you're at, like right now, is really important.
Yeah.
And thanks, for giving us that platform to do that, man. We really appreciate it.
100%. I feel like, and this is something that I learned. And, as I grew up, like I told you, very safe and secure and prescribed, I learned that the more I diversified who I spoke to, listened to different people's journeys, I ended up slowly even diversifying my own mindsets. So I feel like we as people need to do that more. And that is why I started this podcast, because I want different stories to be heard. Listen to a different perspective.
Awesome.
Force yourself to process something differently. Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. And unless you go against your kind of daily routine and the way that the way that you've always done stuff, then you'll never really learn. In your business life, but in your personal life as well. You have to constantly try and push yourself into uncomfortable positions. But I'm only 29. I've got a lot to learn. If you probably asked a lot of my team, they'd probably say I'm a terrible manager. But I hope in a few years' time that I've become, a good leader, proficient, and a good manager, of people. But it just takes time, and you got to roll with the punches. And as long as you're in the game, you can improve, and you can, as long as I'm not back in Accenture, then I can still, I can grow as a person and express myself. So we'll see where it goes.
We're going to do one last cheers. What are we cheersing to, Dylan? What are we cheersing to?
Cheers, Manal. To the weekend.
And to taking the leap. Boom.
Taking the leap. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thank you for tuning in. On each episode, we will continue to bring on successful, dynamic individuals to dig deep and share stories that will inspire you to power up your life. This show is packed with unrivaled storytelling and no reservation advice. Tune in now by searching Power Up with Manal wherever podcasts are found. Please show us just a little bit of love by leaving a review and hitting that subscribe button. This helps our small production get reach and voices heard globally. Let's power up together, baby.